Diddy's party frequency matched 666.888 MHz, and it wasn't meant for humans. I was hired to scan Diddy's white party. What I heard wasn't human. My name's Derek and I used to work as a freelance RF engineer. You know, the guys who sit in vans with blinking scanners and laptops checking for signal leaks, illegal broadcasts, weird anomalies, stuff the FCC never talks about but definitely pays attention to. It wasn't glamorous. Mostly it meant sitting in a lot of parking lots or dark rooftops logging radio chatter from public transit systems, construction crews, and random ham operators. But every so often I'd get a strange reading that didn't fit any known frequency map. I kept a notebook of those. Not because I was chasing ghosts or conspiracies, but because engineers notice patterns. And this one came back every year. Same date, same time, same frequency. 666.888 MHz. Yeah, I know how that sounds. It started 3 years ago on July 3rd. I was scanning the local fire department's tactical channels for training interference. Just standard work, but right around 10:00 p.m., my handheld unit went haywire, sudden static sharp pulses, then a voice, a small voice, very faint like it was caught between channels. I tried to isolate the frequency. My signal sniffer locked on 688 MHz broadcasting from somewhere near Star Island in Miami. I wrote it off as a pirate signal. Could have been kids messing around, or some weird encrypted entertainment feed bleeding over. But the number stuck with me. The following year, I wasn't working that night, but I was curious. I took my scanner out again. Same time, same day. Boom static. Then the voice, same frequency, same tone, same exact words. You said yes. You can't leave now. The way she said it, soft, almost tired. Not scared, just final. I recorded it. I posted the clip anonymously on a closed message board for engineers. I asked if anyone else had picked up that signal. A few laughed it off. One guy in Chicago said he picked up similar phrasing once, also around 606 MHz, but dismissed it as RF bleed from a haunted walkie-talkie toy, whatever that means. Then the message got deleted. Not flagged, removed completely. Admin never answered my messages. It was like I'd never posted it. That's when I started to wonder. Star Island, if you don't know, isn't just some fancy place. It's locked down, especially during the summer. It's home to ultra-private parties, celebrity events, and things people with security clearances don't talk about. And every July 3rd, Sean Diddy Combs throws his infamous white party there. No press, no photos, invitation only. I'm not saying there's a direct connection, but I'm also not saying there isn't one. Because last year, I decided to dig deeper. I ran a full citywide sweep with better gear, dual receivers, external directional antennas, and signal triangulation. Not FCC issue, but close. I wasn't messing around. July 3rd, 9:58 p.m. I was parked on the MacArthur Causeway, facing toward Star Island, with all sensors live. Right on schedule, the signal came in. Stronger this time, clearer. Same voice, same phrase. You said yes. You can't leave now. But now I could pinpoint the direction. My GPS plotted it a 500-foot radius centered on Diddy's mansion. I froze. This wasn't just random noise. Someone or something was deliberately broadcasting this every single year during that party, on a frequency that isn't supposed to be used by any legal device in that range. I saved the file, made copies, and encrypted them. Paranoia. Maybe. But if you'd heard the way her voice sounded, not scared, not desperate, just resigned, like she wasn't talking to someone for the first time, but for the 100th. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Every engineer I showed it to got weird. One guy played it once and refused to listen again. Another said he heard a second voice layered underneath, but it was too deep to isolate. Some just told me to stop. Then I noticed something else. The timestamp metadata on the audio file every year, it was precisely 10:03 33 p.m. Down to the second. That's not human error, that's programmed. That's ritual. I know how this sounds. I know how people will react. I'm not saying I believe in ghosts. I'm saying I believe in signals. And I know when something isn't right. The only common denominator, the party. Always the same date, always the same location, always the same man hosting it. Diddy. Don't get me wrong, this isn't about fame or rumors or celebrity bashing. I couldn't care less about that world. This is about a repeating non-public frequency, broadcasting the same phrase every year from the same location with no explanation. I wanted to go further. I wanted to get inside. But access to Star Island is restricted. You need an invite, a job, or a name that opens doors. I had none of those. Until I made a call. An old friend of mine, Javi, works event security. He owed me a favor from back when I helped him rig surveillance blockers for a private gig. He said he could maybe get me in, but I'd have to go as equipment crew. Lighting, maybe. Or tech setup. No cameras, no questions. White parties not for people like us, he warned me. You go in, you shut up, you leave. I told him I just wanted to see the inside. Just once. He paused. You ever hear weird signals from that place? My heart stopped. He knew. He didn't say it again. Just told me to be at the marina the next day at 4 p.m. Dress code was all white. No logos, no devices. I packed my gear. Not my full setup, just enough to record from a distance if needed. Pocket-sized frequency logger, high-gain clip mic, signal trap hidden in a belt buckle, all passive, all silent. When I showed up at the dock, a man in white with an earpiece checked my ID, scanned my badge, and said nothing. No one spoke. We boarded a small boat. The other techs looked like me, quiet, alert, focused. Like they'd been briefed without words. Star Island rose out of the bay like a memory you weren't supposed to have. Palm trees, music, security everywhere. White linen polished floors, soft blue lights under the water. No phones, no clocks. It didn't feel like a party, it felt like preparation. I kept my head down, set up lights, ran cables, checked angles. Everything looked normal, if normal meant watching billionaire strangers toast to nothing in particular, while the air buzzed with tension you could feel in your teeth. But I didn't care about the guests. I cared about 10:03 p.m. I clipped my mic near the east wall, facing the shoreline, synced it to my logger, and waited. At 10:01, I stepped away, pretending to fix a light panel. My scanner blinked. 10:03:31, 10:03:32, 10:03:33. There it was. You said yes. You can't leave now. My eyes stung. My hands shook. It wasn't from the speakers. It wasn't from the radios. It wasn't coming from anywhere around me. It was inside the static. The guests didn't react. No one noticed. But my device caught its same frequency, same power level, same direction. Only now it was closer. I played it back through headphones, but this time, the voice was different. More detail, more breath. It wasn't a radio transmission. It sounded like someone whispering right behind me. I didn't go home straight after the party. I drove aimlessly for 2 hours, my brain in full static, heart thudding, every time I remembered how close that voice had sounded. Not like a distant radio whisper anymore, but like breath, right at the back of my neck. But the weirdest part, nobody else heard it. None of the staff, none of the guests, not even the sound crew whose equipment had been 5 feet from mine. It was like it was meant for me. When I finally pulled into my apartment, it was close to 1 a.m. I live in a small place west of the city, nothing fancy. Thick walls, no neighbors above or below. Perfect for someone who deals with sensitive audio for a living. I walked in, locked the door, and turned off every light. I didn't even change clothes. I just went straight to the soundproof booth I'd built in my back room, black foam on all 4 sides, sealed glass door, 0 external noise bleed. That booth had saved my work more than once. Tonight, I needed it to save my mind. I sat at my desk, Plugged the external logger into my computer. Opened the encrypted file. The interface came up. My custom signal editor flickered once, something I'd never seen it do before, but loaded. File length 000133. Size 17.2 by. Source passive scan. Frequency 666.888 MHz. I put on my headphones, hit play, static, then the voice. You said yes, you can't leave now, then again. You said yes, you can't leave now, again. Exactly every 7.77 seconds. No pitch variation, no background noise, no compression artifacts. It was as if someone had taken the same sound bite and looped it perfectly, not like a raw recording, but like a programmed digital file. But that couldn't be right. The signal was analog. The static was real. I'd logged a live broadcast, not a playback. And yet, no modulation, no bleed, no environmental variation at all. It was just one voice, one phrase, one pattern, like a machine trying to say something human. I zoomed in on the waveform, flatlined in all the wrong places, where there should have been ambient noise, wind-distant chatter reverb. There was silence. Artificial silence. Too clean. Unnatural. I ran it through a low-frequency filter. No hidden messages, no backmasking, no whispers underneath. It was just her voice played again and again, like a warning, or a condition. I left the booth and got some water. My mouth was dry, not just from stress, but because I realized something. The recording sounded less real than what I heard at the party. That didn't make sense. Recordings always lose fidelity. That's normal. But this, it felt like the opposite. Like the recording was too perfect, too sterile. Like the part I heard, the part that scared me, had never been recorded at all. I went back in, reran the analysis, checked the log timestamps. 10:03:33 p.m. signal appears. 10:03:40 voice begins. 10:05:13 file ends. 10:05:15 silence consistent. But then I open the raw wave cache, the untrimmed session data my device automatically stores, before compression. It's a background feature, never full resolution, but it catches weird artifacts. And that's when I saw it. There was missing time. Exactly 5 seconds of corrupted data. Right at the point where I remembered feeling the breath. The part that wasn't in the file. I played the raw cache, and there was nothing. No static, no voice, no sound. Just absence. A hole where sound should have been. And inside that silence, something in me twitched. Not physically, not pain, just wrongness. That's when I knew it wasn't a glitch. It wasn't the gear. It wasn't RF drift. It wasn't a faulty input line. Something had spoken directly to me, outside the recording, and whatever it was, it didn't want to be tracked. I replayed the file again just to be sure. You said yes. You can't leave now. I stared at my waveform timeline. 4 identical spikes, evenly spaced, looped like it was set to repeat forever. And that's when I noticed the file name had changed. Not the visible name. I mean the embedded label metadata, the kind you only see when digging into the file's info block. It used to say temp log 03.mp3. Now it said confirmation received.wav. I never named it that. My hands began to sweat. I checked my system logs. No changes, no edits, no background processes, no update alerts. The file name had been altered without a trace. I shut the system down, pulled the drive, and sat there, in the dark. The silence wasn't comforting. It was heavy, thick, like the air was waiting. I checked my phone out of habit. No signal, no missed calls. Except one notification I didn't remember allowing. Are you still listening? That was it. No number, no sender. I locked the phone, put it face down, and then the lights in my apartment blinked once. No power loss. Just a flicker. I checked my apartment's smart breaker. Stable. Everything was green, except the clock on the microwave had reset and showed 10:03. I hadn't touched it. I backed away, sat back down in my booth and stared at the monitor, and I swear to you the headphones were on the desk. But I heard the voice without them, soft, right next to my ear. You said yes, you can't leave now. I didn't scream, I didn't move, I just stared. I turned off the entire system, pulled the battery, unplugged the booth. But even in the dark, I still heard it. Not loud. Not all the time, but enough. Enough to know something had followed me back. Something that didn't care about speakers or frequencies or rules. Something that didn't need recording. I tried every tool I had, radio jammers, grounded Faraday mesh, audio nullifiers. Nothing stopped it, because it wasn't coming from the outside anymore. It was in me, not as a possession, not a spirit. I don't believe in that, but something had embedded itself, somewhere between logic and fear, between signal and thought. That phrase, it looped, not in my ears, in my head. You said yes. You can't leave now, and the worst part, I don't remember saying yes, but the voice. She sounds like someone who knows I did. I didn't sleep the next night. I sat up with a headset on, listening to nothing, waiting for something. But nothing came, no new signals, no whispers, just silence. That should have been comforting. It wasn't. The next day I packed my gear and drove toward the causeway again. Star Island wasn't open to the public, not even close. It was walled off, guarded private in every possible way. But I had an old trick. If you dress like you're supposed to be somewhere and carry the right equipment, most people won't ask questions. I wore all white cheap linen shirt, khakis utility belt, black wristband with a hidden mic, and an old laminated pass from a previous job that read, Guest Tech, Audio Support. Most people wouldn't notice it was expired. I kept a clipboard in my hand, blank forms inside, just enough to look like I belonged. As I approached the first gate, I could already hear music in the distance, low, pulsing rhythmic. Not party music, ambient, repetitive, ritualistic. The security checkpoint was ahead. 2 men in white polos, white earpieces, white gloves. I pulled up slowly, window down, ID badge out. The one on the left leaned in, scanned my pass, looked at my face for too long. Then, without a word, waved me forward. No questions. No small talk, just eyes. I parked a few streets down from the main compound. From there I walked the rest of the way, clipboard in hand, moving like I had a deadline. There were white tents, catering vans, generators, clusters of tech crew. Nobody looked up. Everyone was focused, eyes forward, ears covered. Then I reached the back of the main house. It looked like something out of a magazine, white marble glass walls, palm shadows swaying against massive archways. But the beauty wasn't what hit me first. It was the silence. Despite the people moving all around, there was an eerie calm, like sound had been turned down on purpose. No laughter, no casual conversation, no footsteps on gravel, just that low thump of bass coming from somewhere underground. I took a breath, approached the rear service entrance, and showed my badge to another guard in white. He didn't scan it, just stared. Then he said, "Equipment." I opened my case, microphones, audio monitor, coiled cables. Nothing that would look suspicious. He nodded. Then he waved a black wand over my chest. It beeped once. He frowned. "Hold still," he said. The wand buzzed again, this time over my wristband. "Comm device?" he asked. "Mic receiver," I replied. "Standard for live balancing." He looked at me. Not angry, not confused, just still. Then he said something that made my stomach twist. "We know you're listening." I froze. He didn't elaborate, didn't smile, didn't move, just let me in. Inside everything was too white. The walls, the floors, even the staff uniforms. Like a sterile dream version of a party. Soft jazz played overhead, but the tempo was too slow, almost reversed. I could see reflections of people in the glass, but they didn't move the way people should. Too smooth, too rehearsed. I wasn't supposed to be there, but no one stopped me. It was like they'd all been warned, or like they didn't care anymore. I made my way down a side hallway, looking for a vantage point. I passed a mirrored wall, glanced at my reflection, and saw something I didn't expect. My reflection wasn't synced. For half a second it blinked after I did. I kept walking. Down the corridor, I found a maintenance alcove with a view of the main courtyard. Dozens of guests in white mingled around a circular pool. In the center was a strange sculpture, twisted chrome wires, forming a shape that resembled both a spiral and a cage. No one looked at it, but no one stepped near it either. I set up my recorder. Not the hidden one, I wanted something bigger, more sensitive. I extended the antenna, boosted the gain, and hit record. The frequency jumped instantly, 666.888 MHz, live and steady, but there was no voice, only a hum, a deep, metallic, almost subterranean tone that felt like it was vibrating my teeth. Then a flash of static, then nothing. Then her voice, "You said yes, you can't leave now." Then silence, then again, "You said yes, you can't leave now." Only this time it wasn't from my device. It was from a speaker system, hidden subtle but present, played only inside the walls. Not for the guests, not for the crew, just for me. Someone had triggered it. Someone wanted me to hear it. I backed away slowly, clutching the recorder, heartbeat pounding so loud it drowned everything else. Then I heard footsteps behind me. I turned. A man in white, tall, shaved head, glasses, no name tag. He looked at me and said, "Exits this way." His voice was flat. No inflection, not even unfriendly. I nodded, followed him back the way I came. He didn't touch me, didn't threaten, but the pressure in the air told me I wouldn't be warned twice. When I reached the gate, the original guard was still there. He didn't say anything, just held out a white envelope. Inside was a flash drive, no label, no note. He tilted his head. "Use headphones." I took it, left, didn't say a word. Back in my car, hands shaking, I waited until I was at least a mile away before opening the envelope again. The flash drive was old, slightly scratched, yellowed. I almost didn't want to plug it in, but I did, because I'm not good at letting go. I didn't plug in the flash drive right away. I waited until I was home behind locked doors, surrounded by the walls I trusted. But even then my hands hesitated at the keyboard. Something about that flash drive felt alive. Not literally, but like it was carrying more than data, like it had weight. I slid it into a port on a quarantined laptop, no network access, no auto execution. I'd built it for exactly this kind of scenario. The drive lit up, one folder, no name, just a file inside labeled heardyouderek.wav. My throat tightened. No one at the compound had my name. I never told anyone. My badge was generic. My ID was faked. I hadn't registered with security or submitted any files. They shouldn't know who I am. I opened the file. A single waveform stretched across the screen. 6 minutes. I checked the bitrate, ultra low, almost degraded. The frequency band looked strange. Too compressed in the middle, no highs, no lows. Just a strange, blocky chunk sitting inside the spectrum. I ran a sweep. Then my speakers hissed. It started with static, a fluttering noise. Not the clean static you get from radio. This was dirty, uneven, grainy, like something was trying to crawl through it. Then came the voice. Derek, not loud, not clear, but unmistakable. My whole body went cold. Then again. Derek, you heard me? I pulled the headphones off reflexively. My ears were ringing, not from volume, but from pain. A sharp, high-pitched pressure behind my eardrums that hadn't come through the speakers. I'd felt this once before. Ultrasound, but lower. I checked the frequency spectrum again. There was something buried under the main audio, an ultra-low wave around 17 Hz, below human hearing. But not below human perception. Subsonic resonance. The kind that makes you uneasy, sick, or scared without knowing why. It wasn't meant to be heard. It was meant to be felt. I turned on my modulation isolator and filtered out the primary voice track, leaving just the low-end frequencies. What came through didn't sound like sound at all. It was more like breathing. Wet, layered off-sync, like multiple throats trying to whisper through the same hole. Then the phrase returned. You said yes. You can't leave now. But this time it continued. Derek, you said yes. You came back. You always come back. I froze. Always I scrubbed backward. You always come back. What the hell did that mean? Was this a threat, a loop, or was it referring to something deeper? Something I didn't remember. I tried running the file through multiple decoders. One flagged a strange embedded metadata field labeled return path 03. It wasn't a standard tag. I opened it. A single hexadecimal string popped up. When converted, it rendered GPS coordinates. I copied them, plugged them into a map. It pointed to a clearing in the woods just west of the city limits, near an abandoned radio tower. My hands shook as I reached for the power switch. But before I could touch it, the audio changed. Not in the file, in the air. No speakers, no output. Just sound, real sound, coming from behind me. I turned fast. Nothing there. My apartment was still silent, but my body wasn't. I could feel the vibration running through my bones. The sound was no longer contained. I hit stop on the file. The vibration continued. Then I heard her again, not from the laptop, not from the flash drive. From inside the room. You heard me. Now I hear you. I backed away from the desk. My breath caught in my throat. Every hair on my arm was standing up. The air felt dense like humidity just before a storm. The lights flickered, then everything went dark. My backup power kicked on a second later. But the laptop was off. The flash drive was gone. I hadn't ejected it, I hadn't touched it. But the USB slot was empty. And where it had been, a faint outline glowed on the metal frame like heat residue in the shape of a child's hand. I stood there for minutes, not moving, not thinking, just trying to breathe. Then my phone vibrated. No caller ID, no number, just a text. You're listening now. I dropped it, walked to the front door, opened it. A cold breeze hit me, unnatural for July in Miami. And then I heard her again, right behind my ear. You always say yes. I started repeating the phrase in my sleep. At first I didn't notice, but people around me did. My voice recorder set up to catch stray signal bleed, picked up soft murmurs every night around 3 a.m. Just whispers, faint, crooked, barely human. You said yes. You can't leave now. Over and over, each time sounded less like me and more like something using my voice. I tried to dismiss it as exhaustion, residual suggestion from hearing the message too many times. But my notes were getting messier, disjointed. I'd open my signal logs and find entire paragraphs I didn't remember writing. Phrases like, she's close now, or her voice was never a broadcast, or just timestamps labeled return in red marker, underlined 3 times. I don't even own a red marker. The line between documentation and hallucination was blurring. I didn't trust myself to work anymore. Friends started asking if I was okay. I lied. Said it was overwork, that I'd caught a bug. But then Michael, a guy I'd known for years, pulled me aside at lunch. He looked pale, nervous. You were at his house last night, he said. I blinked. Whose house? Diddy's place. Star Island. I saw you. I was working a night shift on a yacht docked nearby. I looked up around 3 a.m. and saw someone just standing in the road. He pulled out his phone. The picture was grainy, zoomed in, poorly lit. But it was me, standing motionless outside the white mansion gates, wearing the same clothes I'd gone to sleep in. I don't sleepwalk. I don't drink. I hadn't left the house in 2 days. I checked my phone's GPS history. The logs were wiped between 2:41 and 4:12 a.m. No backup, no cache. I couldn't explain it. Couldn't argue with the photo. It was real. I was there, but I had no memory of it. The next night I forced myself to stay awake. No caffeine, just discipline. Eyes wide, door-locked windows, sealed lights on. At exactly 2:57 a.m. my ears started to ring, not sharply. Just a low pressure like cabin altitude shifting fast. My vision blurred, my thoughts slowed, and I blacked out. When I came to it was 4:08 a.m. I was on the floor of my sound booth, sweating, trembling, my shirt was damp. My left hand was bleeding 4 tiny cuts across the knuckles like fingernails had dug in. I checked the recorder. It was still running. The log had one new entry, an audio file saved at 03:33:33. I played it. Just static for 30 seconds. Then me. You said yes. You can't leave now. But this time, there was something else underneath it. Another voice, quiet, female, barely above the static floor. He's almost ready. I paused it, rewound, played it again. He's almost ready. Ready for what I stopped sleeping altogether. Stayed in my booth. Left notes for myself. Time-stamped everything. I placed motion detectors near the doors and a passive thermal camera in the hallway. Night after night I blacked out. Always around 3 a.m. Always for 1 to 2 hours, and every morning there'd be something new. One night it was a photo of my own front door from the outside, taken from my phone. Another night my audio recorder was moved, placed under my bed, pointed at the ceiling. Once I found a note in my handwriting on the bathroom mirror. Don't answer the next one. It's not her anymore. I hadn't written that. At least not while awake. But the writing matched. Even worse, I started noticing other people staring at me in public, on buses, in line at the grocery store, at gas stations. Not random glances, full unblinking attention, like they recognized me, like they were waiting for something to happen. When I'd meet their gaze, most of them would simply look away and vanish into the crowd, but sometimes one would hold it a little too long, then whisper under their breath, "You said yes." It happened 5 times in a week. I stopped going out. I boarded up the windows, blocked the vents, stopped using electricity except for the recording booth. My food came from sealed deliveries, no phone calls, no signal scanning. But even then it wasn't enough, because now I'd started hearing the voice during the day, not in my head, in the walls. It wasn't broadcasting anymore. It was inside. I told myself I'd destroy the files, delete the logs, burn the backups, seal it all in a metal box and bury it 6 feet underground. But I didn't. I couldn't. Because there was still one file I hadn't opened. The first recording. The one I made that night outside the mansion. The one I encrypted, copied, then locked behind 3 layers of security and swore never to touch again. I don't know why I opened it. Maybe because it felt like it was calling me back. Maybe because deep down I already knew the truth. I just needed to hear it out loud. I decrypted the file. The wave loaded slowly, almost reluctantly, as if even the system knew what was coming. The waveform looked familiar. 4 main peaks spaced 7 seconds apart. I hit play. At first it was exactly as I remembered. You said yes. You can't leave now. Again. You said yes. You can't leave now. But something was wrong. The voice wasn't the same. It wasn't the soft, resigned whisper of the girl I'd heard in the static. It was me. I paused the file. I paused. Replayed it. Slowed it down. Same inflection, same tone, same pauses between words. It was my voice, not similar, not simulated, mine. I scrubbed through the rest of the file. Same phrase, same loop, but each repetition had a slight variation in breath, like a living person was speaking it again and again. Not a copy, not a recording. It wasn't a playback. It was a confession. I checked the metadata, heart pounding so loud I almost couldn't hear the fan in the room. There it was, hidden under File Origin and Stream ID, Voice ID, Derek Primary. The word primary echoed in my head like a hammer strike. This wasn't just a coincidence. This wasn't just a possession. This was integration. The voice on the file hadn't been recorded from somewhere else. It had been pulled from me, extracted, stamped, played back like proof. I staggered back from the desk. Some part of me wanted to scream, another part laughed. I couldn't tell which one won. I pulled up all my old logs, every file, every signal I'd ever recorded on that frequency. Ran the same metadata search. Every one of them had source internal. They'd never been signals from outside. They'd always been from me. The voice I chased, the mystery I tried to solve, the whisper I thought belonged to a lost girl. It was never about her. It was about me. She'd been a mask. A voice I invented to distance myself from what I couldn't accept. I was the one who repeated it. I was the one who answered. I was the one who said yes. And maybe that's how it always works. Not through possession, not through transmission, but agreement. You say yes. And something enters. Something without shape, without sound, without location. It waits, not for your ears, for your consent. I didn't need antennas or recorders or encryption. I just needed to listen. And now it doesn't have to hide anymore. Because I'm the signal now, and you're listening.